Hi, Julius. Thanks so much for taking the time for this episode of the Future of GTM podcast to talk a bit about how go-to-market is not only AI and digital and automation. What role do calls play? We'll specifically talk about a future of GTM, which is bringing back the humans, having human conversations, calling people, and picking up the phone and just having a human conversation and getting direct feedback versus email, LinkedIn, content, ecosystem like growth, everything that we hear on LinkedIn and so on. Can you share a bit about who are you? What brought you to this show to become the co-founder and CEO of Revenue Excellence Partners?
Yes, thank you very much, Manu, for the invite. Happy to be here. Yeah, I'm Julius, co-founder and CEO of Rep, as you already said. We are a SDR as a service agency, so exactly what you're describing. That's our day in, day out. So we have like a team of about 20 SDRs right now who are doing actively outbound, especially for software as a service and IT companies out there. Our goal is always to either outperform the internal team or just start cold calling or outbound in general for our customers. Yeah, I studied business administration in Münster. Was happy to get into tech sales pretty early on as an intern, working student, and a full-time employee as a go-to-market lead in the sales tech space. Yeah, then I met my co-founders, Robert and Julius, and now we're here.
Yeah, amazing journey. I think also from studying business as I also did, and like how much did you learn about calling people and cold calling in by studying business for multiple years?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, Manu, I don't know how it is for you, but if I'm talking to salespeople, no one is like, I studied sales and I wanted to become a seller like from day one. It's just like occasionally just people get there. So same for me. And that's why I'm happy that there are some studies out there and universities, for example, Ruhr-Universität Bochum, they even offer like a sales management.
That's amazing.
Now,
That didn't exist. That didn't exist during my times.
yeah,
So I studied.
shout out to Christian there.
Yes, I studied to 2008 to 2013, and people ask me later on, like, where do you learn? So I said, like, Hartmann University of some kind. Not a bad business university, like one of the best in Europe, apparently. And did you learn it at Accenture or Tesla? I was like, no, I learned it by the School of Hard Knocks. Like 2009, I was on the street pitching people 200 times a day for non-profit org, like physically. Speaking to people you don't know, not this, there was zero list. There was just people walking by. And I think it got lost a bit in the post-COVID culture as well. When I talk to even VP sales, like sales reps and so on, it is a challenge of getting people to actually call. I was like, can I not send an email? Like, can I not just wait? Like, shall we enroll them in a sequence? How do you see that culture evolving after Corona?
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting point. I'm actually sitting there with like chief revenue officers, CEOs, revenue leaders, like every day, many of them, and even like many like famous companies, if you want to say it like that, especially like for the German, Berlin, Munich, whatever startup scene. And many of them actually have like activity goals for their revenue teams, especially for the SDRs. And I guess that's a big problem because they need to kind of value cold calls other and or more different compared to like email or LinkedIn. And I think that's actually coming from the situation you just described during COVID, because people, I don't know, they just did not pick up the phone and therefore, yeah, are either sending emails and LinkedIn, but I don't know how it is for you, but for me, I get like 50-ish cold call messages like every month, but I rarely get cold calls, especially good cold calls. So
I rarely get great cold calls where there's a follow through. Like what Jason Lemkin described as an amazing AI written email and like, hey, look, we can take over the SaaS podcast and post production and we'll do everything for you, like commission only based on downloads. I was like, amazing, tell me more. And then as a human writing back, okay, so what's your podcast doing and how many episodes do you have? And I was like, so the AI was better because you can go on Spotify, like the SaaS podcast is the most known SaaS podcast in the world, and it has 801 episodes. So the AI did a great job at the outreach. Like the content education was all great. The value proposition was great. It was like, take my money, and then a human messes it up and does a really bad call. And I've seen that repeatedly as well. But even when the cold call is not that good on like the personalization, like I had somebody cold calling me for bits and pretzels. Shout out to the person who sold the ticket. And they're like, hey, am I speaking to Thomas Handel of F Topic here? I was like, no, like, but I know him well. I appreciate him as a client. Say hi to Thomas. And they were like, well, anyways, who are you? Do you want to go to Bits and Pretzels? And shall I send you an invite? Like, well, anyways, you got the name wrong and the company, but yes, please send me an email. And she sent me an email within an hour after the cold call, and I purchased a ticket that same day.
Yeah,
and the email was saying, dear Thomas, do you want to buy a ticket? It's still wrong. It's still not personalized, but the value proposition is still compelling, and the follow through enabled me to take action. How do you see the difference between like relevance, personalization, like actually follow through, like the execution in cold calling?
Yeah. Oh, that's a pretty good point. So maybe I experienced it myself for the Vertriebsmanagement Congress like last
Yes.
week. I personally did some cold calling to schedule meetings on the event, and I also researched via Clay. And I mean, you guys are the experts for that. We researched like, are they currently looking for SDRs, phone agents, Vertriebsindienst, employees, and so on. And therefore, I called them with a very, very precise opener, and therefore I personalized it. And of course, personalization is very, very important, and it works. But in the end, I think you just have to put like in different buckets. So we are looking, for example, for our customers, we are really looking for different buyer personas. So some of them, I don't know, they have like two different buyer persona profiles. For example, HR and facility management, and therefore you do need to have like two different cold call scripts, and therefore you can kind of personalize based on the industry and the persona profile. You do not really need to have a look on like a career page, news, whatever. It's just that you are solving a very specific problem for a very specific buyer persona, and I guess that's it actually.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's just people ask like if a channel works, right? They're like, does cold calling work? Is LinkedIn better than email? And I think it's the wrong approach. It's like asking, does powerlifting work? Does running work? Like for what? And like what? Who are you? Like how? If you get tremendous back pain, squatting like 200 kilos is probably not the right approach. If you want to become a bodybuilder, like going running is probably not helpful. I mean, I've been like a full day client, which rarely get to do this, but with an ERP manufacturer selling to Deutsche Mittelstand, and we booked 6 calls within 90 minutes. Like, I mean, we literally made 8 calls, and like 7 people picked up, and 6 said like, yes, fine, like I'm happy to have a conversation. And I asked the CEO, like, how many times does that happen within 90 minutes? Like, never. Like, I guess like some people never call people because we've been in a room and we've been like 6 people in a room and like now call, and then we give you feedback. And people are like watching around, do I get out of this situation? Like, no, you don't. It's like call. So a big point is accountability and momentum. How do you see this? You have about 20 SDRs. How do you see momentum being nearly infectious in a positive sense?
That's a difficult one. So I think of course you might have a momentum because like for the SDRs, of course, they have like very, very high self-confidence if they just book the meeting before, right? Then you kind of hear it in the recording, you kind of just can see it in the impression of the SDR, why they are better in the next call. But every SDR, and I think that's like biggest skill set SDRs can bring, there will be like 100 no's a day, but there might be like one yes. And this
Resilience.
can be like your biggest deal ever. And that's, yeah, you have to be very, very resilient, especially with like no's.
Yeah, I agree. It's like boxing against better opponents. You just get feedback a lot of times, and you get punched in the face, and you need to go forward again. And it's like this gun shyness, how it's called. And people are like, what if somebody says no? Like they will 90% of the time. Sometimes I joke, maybe a bad joke nowadays. So like going to marketing, it's like sales, but without talking to people,
Absolutely.
without the direct rejection.
So I think, Manu, maybe also coming back to your question before, I think the biggest problem also with personalizing and relevance and all that kind of stuff, many people forget that like nearly 50% of every dial is a no response. So if you're taking like 3 to 5 minutes to have a look at the website and trying to prepare yourself for the person, then you're dialing, you're super nervous and the person is not picking up, then like 5 minutes are lost. And therefore you really need to make a very, very good trade-off between like getting the numbers in, but also personalizing. And how we do it, as I said, we just really personalize on like a very, very specific buyer persona profile.
Yeah.
That's like our best practice, at least.
So you can increase the dials actually without losing relevance.
Yes.
Yeah. And shout out to Call Time here and team from Malte. Like just like if you see if somebody's available or not, I mean it actually works. I'm using this every day pretty much.
Yes.
Like if somebody's on red, like in the HubSpot, like directly shows me like I don't need to call because the person's in the meeting. If somebody's green, like I know, like it makes me happy before I even dial because like
Yeah.
oh, like there's 90% chance this person picks up.
Absolutely. Yeah, dial to connect rate is way higher with call time. I mean, we're also using it. We're happy clients, and we're also using the data enrichment of them.
Yeah.
So they also provide you with like very, very good numbers. There might be private ones in there, but usually they're all B2B labeled. But yeah, I think it's better to get a private number than no number.
Yeah, I agree, and this is not a thing. I mean, with email, we had this conversation like years ago, right? When people say like, I write an email info at rep .de as like no, don't never write something to info, and people as the price doesn't work. People still call like normal office numbers of like 1,000-person company, right? And they expect amazing results. And I mean, many people just don't know. Many people don't dare to interrupt somebody doing work. It's a real concern. And many people just don't know what to say, right? It's like
Absolutely.
they get somewhere, they get a ball, they get a penalty, and they don't know what to do.
Absolutely. I think sometimes it's even worse, Manu. So I think I've met many SDRs who kind of made the impression that they are even happy that they are not connected, right?
Yeah,
Because they are
yeah.
nervous about pitching and getting like objections and all that kind of stuff. So maybe some of them are really happy that they just talk to a gatekeeper. So they really don't want to dial like the mobile number. They're happy to talk to gatekeepers because they are kind of nervous. That's the reality. At least it's what we're seeing with many of our
It's the
customers.
same with target accounts. We see the same thing. So like, look, here's a list of your 100 target accounts. You're like way sideways here. Like you're talking to companies with 50 FTEs, even if your ICP is 5,000 people. Why? Because it's easier. It's easier to book a call with Spitex Limatal than like the number one hospital, even if the number one hospital is the number one target account, and it's the same dial.
Yeah.
But what do you see as most useful to lower that fear, that barrier? And fear is like can either mean like fuck everything and run, right? Or false evidence appearing real. Like both is not the wisest choice to be successful, maybe.
Yeah.
Like what do you see as most helpful in terms of like is it the list? Is it the script? Is it the LinkedIn brand building? Is it the signal, like why people call? Is it like somebody sitting next to them? Is it all of them combined?
Actually, it's the last you mentioned, I guess. I think it's all of them, and it's a combination. So first of all, if we want to kind of run through the whole process, so we are using like a AI onboarding tool to onboard our SDRs on the new case, and therefore for them it kind of gets easier if they're really connected to like the buyer persona or the decision maker later. It's easier for them because they kind of already trained with the person. So we can kind of set up, that will be the objections the person will tell you. Is it a rude person? Is it not a rude person? Is it a CFO, CRO, whatever? That will be your pitch. That usually helps because then they are just not stunned. If the people tell them something, they will just know what they will tell them before. And what also helps a lot, of course, is coaching. Being surrounded by people who are doing the same job as you do, because that's like one of the biggest problems for our customers, especially like smaller customers. They might have just one SDR, and then there's a CEO managing the first SDR, and that's a big problem because it's the only person running through the valley of death, right? It's the only person that knows all the time, and they can't kind of compare their performance to others. That's super hard. Our SDRs have like, if I'm one SDR, I have had 19 other SDRs who get like hundreds of no's every week. So that's totally normal. And you're not a bad SDR if you're getting no's. It's just a straight process.
Yeah, and it's like the learning velocity is just drastically different, right? And like there's so many analogies and memories of like sports and music, right? Like I mean, training and coaching and like playbooks is the most normal thing in like even not professional, but like your local soccer club. Like when I first started combat sports and kickboxing, we've been like 4 people, like amazing trainer, but there was like a professional, like competitive athlete. Then there was like a girl who was doing recreational, like besides basketball, who was actually good, but different weight class. And then it was me, and there was somebody who was just starting out. There are like literally 4 different levels, 4 different ambitions of where to take the sport. And it was like not evenly matched. So like, who did I spar with? That's my weight class. That's similar to me. I made similar mistakes or good things. So that was hard. Now I get to spar every Saturday, 11, pretty much like with 10 to 15 different people, like usually 10 to 12 rounds. And those are the people, like it's a good environment. Nobody knocks out each other, like gives brain damage. But also there's a lot of people with like 60 to 100, 60 to 90 kilograms with like decent skills. And it's the most normal thing that also like in another session you train, like you go jab, cross, hook, evade, jab, evade again, and then you apply the same thing. And that's very happening. That's very happening rarely in business, especially if like there's only a CEO that has never done the job themselves. And the SDR is like, what am I supposed to do? And the answer is, I don't know. And then you have two SDRs and like do what the other one does, but it doesn't work. And I don't have time to teach you. And if it doesn't work, I actually don't know, is it me? Is it you? Is it the market? Is it the script? So it becomes this unsolvable equation of A plus B plus C plus D plus E equals 2. And it should be 10 calls, 10 book meetings like a month. And nobody knows if like where the problem is.
100%. Yeah, that's exactly what we are seeing. And I think you mentioned a very, very important point. I kind of describe it as lead by example, right? So I, by myself, schedule the cold calls for the event, for example. The best CEOs I know, or the best CROs, they have like a cold calling session with the team. I mean, your friend and also advisor for us, Patrick Trümpi, he's a very, very good example because he's doing cold call sessions with the team. And it's not just the CRO telling them, hey, you need to cold call. It's all of them, again, running through the valley of death.
Yes.
Everybody's picking up the phone. Also, Patrick Trümpi is getting those. And maybe also he has a call where he is not happy with. And it's just like business, right?
Yeah, there's two things that Trümpi does amazing there. Like the first one is like, yes, accountability, and like I'm with you on this. Like I mean, like we're one team. I think that's tremendously important. We all had that sports coach who said like everybody do 10 more push-ups standing, and like I was like, okay, if I have to, but once the coach leaves, that's zero activity, because it's just like I must because of given authority of title of entitlement, not because of trust and respect. And the second thing, Trümpi also does like, hey, here's how I mess up. Like, oh, like the number one guy like in that field in that segment messes up. So he gives me permission to also mess up. He gives me permission to share if I did not book the meeting, if I don't know further. And I think that's such an important point in especially calling. Email is less vulnerable because there's no direct feedback. But if people are in this kind of toxic culture, they make a call and then the CEO or like the VP sales shouts at them like, no, stupid, like you did it wrong. People will never do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe one additional point that I'm also seeing a lot, many companies do celebrate, I don't know, in internal Slack challenges, new customers, new
Yes.
AR, new MRR. That's perfect. You should do that for sure. But so few customers really celebrate new meetings, and that's how you should do it, because then a new meeting is like a new opportunity instantly. I don't know, out of 10 meetings, maybe 10 discovery meetings, you should close at least, I mean, of course, depending on your ACV, 1 to 2 customers, right? So every new meeting is like a new option for a new customer. And that's something like a mindset you need to establish within a revenue organization to really make the SDR as valuable within the internal organization, who or she.
Yeah, so true. Thanks for the friendly nudge to. We have a Slack channel for sales, like where once we close a deal in HubSpot, like it triggers and it's like person X closed the deal with I or amount Z in this unit. But I made a note to actually establish that, like, hey, like this person booked a call with this subject on this date.
Yes.
And I think it's true because people ask like, hey, are we getting enough calls? I feel like we're not. It's always like, I feel like even if it logs in HubSpot and we directly see it in like a pipeline stage call book before it becomes like a deal, a legitimate one. But I think it's so important to have this awareness.
Yeah, especially if you have like a larger revenue or SDR team, we can't underestimate how competitive these people are. So if someone pushes into the Slack channel, hey, I just made a meeting with like my number one target account on the list, everybody's like, fuck, I want to be on that list. So that's something like a very kind of positive competition you can generate.
the HubSpot wall of fame or wall of shame? Like what do you see actually here with people calling people? Is it more they love to win or they hate to lose? Like what's
Also, I think it's a combination of both, right? So if you love to win, you hate to lose. And if you hate to lose, you love to win. So I think that, as I said, it's a combination. But of course, so yesterday I just had a call with one SDR, and I was like, what motivates you to pick up the phone every day? And he said, and I think that's very true, like one yes overcompensates one. And I was like, yeah, that's what it's about, right? So they're really, really going for that one yes. And even if they get 100, 200 no's in the process of getting there, that's totally fine, because the yes gives them so much power and also kind of a relief. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's such an important point you touch upon. Like, why do you build? Why do you call, right? And there's different motivations. Like, there's some people got a chip on their shoulder because they got fired in the last job. Some people don't feel worthy by like their parents, their school, their friends, whatever it is, their ex spouse, partner. And some people just love to win because like they say like, okay, I broke my foot, so I call now. And some people just do it to make the business work because that's so important to them. So a good friend, she does Ironman actually. I was like, and he came to me and was like, I hate to cold call. Like, I don't do it. It's hard for me. Like, so you do 16 hours swimming, biking, running, but you are afraid to call somebody. And they're like, can I help you? I'm like, yeah. But he sent me a picture like, I won a cold call award at the recent competition. Like, well, I walked and ran a marathon in less than 6 hours. So I guess we both even now. Now we can do things we enjoy again. And they're like, you know what? It's funny. Like, I was there for like 3 hours and I booked 5 calls in 3 hours. And I only need about 10 a month to make the business work. So I could technically be done on the first Monday of the month. I was like, do you? Like, no, never. What's the number one thing that you see how people not only get to realize what gives them weighted sales pipeline with ideal customer profiles? That's essentially what book calls are about, not the customer acquisition cost part. The behavioral change that people need to do to actually pick up the phone and call until they have these 3, 5, 10, however many they need to make the business work calls.
Yeah. I think the biggest problem is that so many people pick up the phone, and they have like, I don't know, 50, 100 dials. They did not book any meeting, and they're like, well, we tried it. It just does not work for us. I think that's like the biggest challenge, because like I said, cold calling is like 95% getting no's, and you think that the process is just not working. So I think the mindset change you need to make as a revenue organization is kind of expecting the no's and being happy about the yeses. And also, I mean, just looking at like the input factors, of course, like with AI, LinkedIn, and email automation, it's getting like a commodity kind of, right? It's so easy to do it, like expand the LAM list, you name it. There are so many tools out there. So it's super easy
Reach.
for all of them. Yeah, there's so many of them. So it's super easy to kind of play into that game. But it's so hard to get like a very, very high response rate. And even if people are answering, you either need to cold call them afterwards to schedule a meeting, or send 2 to 3 meetings like, what about Monday next week, and so on. With a cold call, you just get instant feedback all the time. And I think once revenue organizations just implement that into their process, they are like, well, we can't get enough of it, because like instant feedback is so valuable also for our customers, for product and for marketing. People underestimate that, because then they kind of experience, and we just had one customer like a few days ago, they were like, well, you get that objection all the time, that's crazy, we need to change our website.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Because they were just not aware of it. And I think that's like a very, very big potential influencer on the cold calling. And
I 100% agree. I had just had a conversation with our HubSpot go-to-market lead, Eric Steffen, who you know, I think, about HubSpot, and I was like, what's most useful for you, like in terms of like deal desk and closing deals? Like, shall we call more people? And it's like, look, it's actually asking the people why they chose us, like because we're not the only HubSpot agency ever in the world, and then really ask like, what's different than other people? And people say, you're the only guys that give us like a fixed price, like not time material BS, something like when we're done. And you're the only guys that actually understand sales, and you are the only guys that actually offer to meet us in person and do an on-site like customer journey workshop and not just paint everything orange. And we were like, interesting. Like we thought that's standard. We thought everybody does that, just better than us because they've been around for 10 years. And it's like, no, we've asked 3 agencies. They all send like PowerPoint. They all send the time material offer. You're the only one that sends a statement of work. Cool. Wouldn't have known without asking.
Yeah, that's it.
And the other part, I think, is really crucial to understand, like, that you have people in your team that want to have feedback. Sometimes in boxing, I was like, hey, shall I film us? Like, shall I ask somebody to get tape, like elite sports, like, and they watch tape. I love getting punched in the face, like watching how I get punched in the face, not for the sake of it, but like to learn, right? Because apparently I did something that I need to fix, and then I can watch it in slow motion again and again. It's a bit painful to watch, but it's helpful. But you also have tons of people in go-to-market that say like, no, please don't watch me, don't give me feedback. How do you find in and retain also these people that are coachable and that want to learn and that want to get better every day?
Yeah.
Because they're in high demand as well. Like they can go wherever they want.
Absolutely. So actually I think coachability is like the number one skill you need to have as an SDR. That's like the first point. And every person that tells me, I don't want to have feedback, I don't want to go into like an AI coaching platform, I don't want to get any feedback on my cold calls, that's like instant red flag for me.
Yeah.
Because
usually, is it a red one or orange one? Because there might be somebody that did it for like 10 years in an industry and they do it reasonably well. So the unit economics work out. So they're going to be performing on like a 60% level of what they can, but it's if that's your best rep because they've cold called they call dentists like for a decade and they know how it works. And it's like, Julius, don't tell me all about it. I'm reasonably successful and I'm okay to be not more successful. Do you fire the person? Do you just say like, look, you could be twice as good, but be you, or do you never employ them because just like this is not our culture?
I have to be hard here, actually. I'd say it's a red flag because usually if one of our customers takes one FTE from ourselves, we will just provide them with 2.5 FTEs. So we are able to benchmark them. And in the end, I would be happy to get the person into the meeting or into the team and will tell, well, just do your thing and we will just benchmark you with another person. And if they perform better, then we definitely have something to talk about, right? So in the end, numbers don't lie. And I think that's how you should do it. We see it a lot of times with our SDRs, even like very senior ones. We have like SDRs that are like 45 years of age. They just did cold calling like their whole life. And they are like, please record my calls. Please provide feedback, because in the end, and I think that's the biggest thing also for us as an agency, but also for internal revenue organizations, we are perfectly aligned on the same goal. If the SDR performs better, they earn more money, we earn more money, and the customer is happy. So every SDR should ask for feedback, because if we are really making them better, and that should be our goal because we are the experts, then it's just good for them and they just make way more money than before.
So that answers like the aligned incentives challenge, which I agree with, which is great. It doesn't answer the incentive challenge. So if you have an agreement with a client and the client says like, well, we expect you to book 5 ICP calls that actually happen, and one person does, and they ask for feedback all the time, and they actually get better. So the next time they book 6, and then you have one person that books 10, like twice quota, and it's like, I want 0 feedback. I don't want to record a call. Let me just do my job. Let me score 10 goals on the field, but I want 0 feedback.
Yeah.
Before you mentioned like, look, you mentioned 2 things. Like 1, it's a red flag if people don't accept coaching, but you also mentioned 2, the main currency is booked ICP calls that actually happen. So if they are twice the quota of like your North Star metric, but they have 0 coachability, do you still pull the red flag? That's the hard one. Every sales leader has a challenge with, right? What to do with great people that are not aligned to culture, assuming they are not toxic, assuming they don't scare away engineers, marketing people, they don't burn the market due to trust issues.
So I think that's a very important point, because if they are toxic and if they are sitting in your office, then they are definitely not the right person, even if they're just bringing in every meeting you need. But I would actually ask them in that case, yeah, maybe. So I think it would make sense if that person, if he or she is really that successful, that he or she should coach other reps, right? What are they doing good? And then you can maybe play back the feedback to the leadership, because then you also might learn from them. And I think it's just like a culture kind of thing, as you said. So I think I
Interesting.
personally like the approach, best idea wins. And if the person comes in and maybe, I don't know, they did something else before, they are now a SDR and they have a great idea, why should we not just test it out if it makes sense, right? And same for the expert, of course.
So that's how you avoid the red flag part, because you tell them like, okay, if it's so great and apparently it works, show it to us. Like, I mean, you basically transition them from a lone wolf maverick style SDR to a coach, and actually so like, look, we even elevate you if you're so great, and let's try for you to pass on. But then if they get below quota, that's like, okay, but like your stuff doesn't work anymore.
And in the end, Manu, I mean, in that case, I'm super happy that we are in sales, because if it would be like an, I don't know, IT admin, it would be super hard to kind of really have a look on the impact. But in sales, you can,
Agreed.
I don't know, after like an onboarding phase, like maybe 6 weeks, whatever, internally, 6, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, maybe, you can just tell them, well, that's like the expectation. You met it or you did not meet it. And therefore we have a decision, right? So it's just like a numerous approach.
Yeah, I loved that one back in 2009, like on the street. Like, it's hard looking back, right? Like Monday, like Thursday you had an interview, Monday you've been on the street. Monday 5 p.m. person came back crying. It's like, I got fired. How long is probation period here? Like, well, apparently it's 1 day. Like, and they don't let you try on Tuesday. Yes, I said I can try on Tuesday, but they don't really believe I can make it.
Yeah,
So
okay.
probation period was like 8 hours. And I asked the team lead, like, how? I was like, well, you got enough shots. You can pitch to 100 to 200 people a day. And you can always make one deal happen, like one deal of $50. Like you can will that into existence, like if you make it happen. But if not, like there's hard stuff. Like tomorrow it might rain, right? It might not be sunny, there might be less people, so you cannot hunt it. So we see fairly well if people have that resilience and coachability in them, because if they just go, let me do the same, and they don't change behavior, they likely never will, also within a week, a month, or a quarter from now.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we are seeing with the internal team sometimes as well. So I just recently had one SDR who was just sitting on a project which was just not performing that good, because he did not talk to many decision makers, so the no response rate was very high. But he knew that we were also kind of challenging his performance. And he was like, well, just give me another case. I want to show you that I'm like a very, very good SDR. I can book meetings, I can bring them in. I want to work for free, like whatever. It's crazy. And that are the best people, actually.
Yeah, we actually hired a person like this, and they did a remote task for the pipeline generation team. It was like good, but not great enough to join the team full time, to tell other people, like entrepreneurs are fairly skeptic to do it. And he came back and was like, hey, I originally we had a conversation about HubSpot. Can I do another remote task? I'll do it for free. I delivered it within 48 hours. Do you give me another shot? I was like, love. And with our team, he started as a working student. Like, shout out to Eric Plishke. And now he's with our HubSpot team, and it does an amazing job. But he came back and he said, like, look, I want to get another shot. Like, I know I can get this. And I was like, can I get a shot? Like, of course. Like, we'd love to have everybody like having that mindset. And it was a great, like, it even made us really happy. This podcast being called The Future of Go-to-Market. What's one thing that you see coming up for 2026 with an impact on calling? I mean, there's all the hype around Apple, like in the US, like having that pre-qualification recording, there's Artisan X11, all these AI SDRs and so on. There's like cold call trainings with bots. There's GDPR laws changing. What do you see changing that will have the biggest impact for your domain?
Yeah. Interesting one. I think people are telling like for 100 years, cold calling is dead, I guess, and reprove it's not. It won't be that in 2026 either. So I think actually, I don't know if you've seen it, Manu, but there is a new software update coming up from Apple, for example.
Yeah, exactly. That was the one I referred to.
Okay. You were referring to that. Yeah. So I think that might be pretty interesting, but I think there are always options getting out of that. So I think openers are getting even more important than they are right now, because you can just cold call people. You need to qualify like who's your ICP, who are your buyer personas, what are the challenges they have, and how you can solve them. Because actually my mindset is, if I won't pick up the phone if someone's really solving a challenge for me, then that's just dumb, right? Because nobody likes to spend more time on processes or more money on things that you would actually need to do. And if there's someone out there who can offer me an option and just makes my day as a CEO or whatever easier, then it's fine. And therefore, I think there will always be options to kind of run through every technical hurdle. And that's a new hurdle out there. But like I said, the opener will just make it. And I actually think that many people will just disable the feature because, I don't know, my mom, she's on anonymous all the time, and she would need to kind of give me information who's calling. If she's telling me 5 times, hey, this is your mom, call me back, then I think, well, maybe I will just disable it afterwards.
Yeah, that's the same thing that happens like with screen time. It's like, hey, you exceeded like 5 minutes on LinkedIn. It's like, stop. Like I'll just disable the constraint again because it's annoying. People always change convenience. They change privacy for convenience. It feels like it was the same thing with Web 1, Web 2, Web 3, and all the time people like, yeah, but privacy matters. Like, yeah, but I want Google to know my location, and I just want to press home. I just want to be logged in all the time. I just want to have a personalized feed, and that doesn't happen by disabling the privacy thing. Hey, we could go on for another like 1, 2, 3 hours probably. We could do some cold call bootcamp stuff together. It would be lovely. Thanks so much for taking the time. I think we hit the time which people typically commute or run, which is great to listen to a podcast. Really looking forward to all the great things we can do together. You're on the calling side, also on the LinkedIn brand building and signal-based outbound side here. And wish you all the best of success. Happy calling, and don't get in despair by the nose. I know you don't, but thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Manu. Really enjoyed it. And yeah, also really looking forward to our great partnership once again.